I think we can go ahead and get started. Looks like we have a few people still hopping on, but that's okay. Thanks for all of you who have hopped on so far. Welcome to Driving Franchisee Growth in 2024, Building Your Local Marketing Strategy. Before we start, just a quick announcement. I know a few of you mentioned you're able to join for a little bit and then you have to hop off. Totally okay. I'll be sending a recording of the webinar out to all the registrants afterwards, as well as our new guide that we just put together on building your local marketing strategy and supporting your franchisees in 2024. So keep an eye on your inbox for that. To begin with, we're just going to go over some quick introductions. I'll go first. My name is Lizzy Young. I'm the Growth Marketing Manager at DevHub, a CMS platform specializing in branded and customized franchisee sites. I've been in the franchise industry for about 5 years. My background is in marketing and PR on both the franchisor and franchisee level. So I'm going to hand it off to our panelists just to do some quick introductions as well. Troy, I see you're already up if you want to go ahead and start.
Sounds great. Thanks, Lizzy. Great to be with everybody and share the stage with Mark and Thomas as well. My name is Troy Hooper. I'm the CEO of Hot Palate America. That's the parent company for the brand Pepper Lunch. As you can see with my background and logo on my shirt, it's pretty obvious. I'm loud and proud with the Pepper Lunch brand. We're a 513 unit restaurant brand that lives in 15 countries. We've been around for 30 years. We're a Japanese hot plate teppanyaki for one concept. And we're in the fast casual space predominantly. So great to be here. Thanks, Leslie.
And then Mark, if you want to go next.
Yes, Lizzy, thank you for organizing this. I know it's a lot of work to put together a webinar. Thomas, great to be here with you. Troy, great to meet you today. Again, we can't fake chemistry. I think it's going to be really fun today. Mark Michael, CEO, co-founder of DevHub. A platform used by just over 280 plus brands with a focus on multi-location and more specifically franchise. We believe websites are your most valuable asset digitally, and looking forward to sharing more with you all.
Awesome. Thomas, go ahead.
Great. My name's Thomas Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of Home Run Franchises, the franchisor of Up Closets, Dryer Vent, Superheroes, and the Lighting Squad. I've spent 25 years in franchising, have run a supplier agency doing FranDev marketing mostly, but I've also been a franchisor of 9 brands throughout my career, mostly in the service space. So I'm not a brick and mortar guy. I'm the other end of the universe from Troy, but super excited about this topic. This is something I care quite a bit about. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have multiple perspectives from both different types of franchisors and then from a supplier standpoint as well. To get started, I'm just going to share. You should be able to, I believe, see my screen. I'm going to share this quick graphic with you that we put together. And it's a good starting point because it's what we call a digital activation strategy. And really, it's applicable to your national marketing efforts and to your local franchisee marketing. So it's all the components that drive franchise growth. So we have your listings, your email marketing, your public relations, everything just comes together. And at the heart of it all is your website. That's what everything links back to. It's often the first impression customers get of your brand, and it's the ultimate conversion tool. Simply put, if your website sucks, you may be driving customers to your competitors. So for local marketing, this means your franchisee sites. And that's where we're going to start. So I think I'm going to go to you first, Thomas.
Okay.
What would you say makes local SEO friendly sites so important to franchise growth?
Well, I think people, we think about in a company just having a website as being like one dominant website. But the truth is our customers really associate us at the local level. And so having a really good localized website, like a real website for a franchisee, that's the home base for that business. That's how your customers get to know you. And, it's very important for, I got some, sorry about that.
No worries.
We'll edit it out in post.
Yeah, we'll edit it in the recording. No worries. I think maybe while we're waiting for Thomas. Oh, Thomas, you're back?
My bad. I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Home day and I had some dogs yelping at the yard guy. One of the things about local customers is the best type of customer, particularly in a service brand, is a high intent customer that comes through the Google universe. So having something that's highly optimized for conversions through the Google Business Directory and your local website where they can get to your home base and convert into a customer is mission critical. Like a website system that doesn't perform well fails a franchisee. And the difference in a really good website and a poor website can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars of business for the franchisee. And as a franchisor, we're in business to make sure that our franchisees are successful. And without a really well thought out website, like the ones you guys have, that has good architecture, and that's, I think, websites aren't all equal. A website's job really is to educate somebody, convert them into a lead for a franchisee. In the service world, that's the way we think about lead generation, and probably true in brick and mortar as well. I want somebody to place an order, to look at my menu, to connect with me, and to kind of move along in their journey. And boy, the home base of a local website is everything in the marketing thing. So skimping on that is really a dangerous proposition for a franchisor.
Definitely, definitely. And going back to, talking about the customer experience, Troy, if you could just touch on, why is localization in your digital marketing so important for customers?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be able to see themselves there, right? They have to have resonance with the brand, but more importantly, it's the local level that they know, right? They are familiar with the team behind the counter and how things flow and where things are. And so you need to make your marketing make them feel like they're in the building that they're going to experience, that they're going to be with the team or experience hospitality. In our case, hospitality from the team that they're going to experience while they're there. And so you need to put a local face on it. I think it has to be highly contextualized to that market. And really all that matters is you're driving new customers and you're reminding your existing customers of why they love you or what else they might find in your business that they can fall in love with if they've tried you a couple of times. You're really trying to maximize their trial and how many times they come to become sort of what we would consider a raving fan. So if you aren't outbound contextualizing it, you may not be getting found. Somebody in Albuquerque finding you and your restaurant in San Diego isn't really helpful if you don't have any stores near Albuquerque. So it's more important that you hyper contextualize and localize and personalize your messaging and your imagery and your entire marketing campaign. All of those tips, tricks, and secret technology things you can do in the background and in the foreground. It's really important that you focus on that so that you are found by the hyper local market. Because in restaurants, I can tell you it's 3 to 5 miles. Really, it's 15 to 25 minutes. Outside of that, you're not really attracting. Imagine how many restaurants you drive past to get somewhere in 25 minutes, right? And so it's really important that you're talking to the market that you're in. And so that means you are actually replicating in every market. And if you're in lots of markets, then you're hyper contextualizing for each of those markets.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, for sure. And I know as far as local marketing goes, Mark, you've obviously seen and launched so many franchisee sites throughout your 16 plus years in business. So what are the 3 most common mistakes that you see on local franchisee sites?
I mean, honestly, at the macro level, it's basically what Thomas said. It's more a lack of strategy. So the idea that you built it once and it's done. I mean, since 2007 to today, I think unofficially Google's probably had 500 updates. Like, are you keeping up with all those things? And I mean, the hot button topic in the last, let's say, 2 years, which again, we've been ready for, shameless plug, since 2017, has been ADA, but until anyone gets sued, it's kind of like an afterthought. And again, like the web is always changing. Consumer behavior is almost always changing. Just in those 16 years to go all the way to mobile now, where we're seeing most traffic is derived from mobile. Again, no one wants to read a huge about section or have a map to a plumber's website where it's like, we just want to call, fill out a form, or text immediately on that first above the fold on a mobile device. So again, it's really the staying up to date with the changing dynamic of the consumer, and then how the consumer is interacting with the web, wherever they're interacting with the web, mobile, desktop, tablet, watch. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. As someone who's worked on a lot of franchisee sites as well before, that's that's the big thing. It's just keeping up with your website. And it's also a big reason I see for brands migrating away from managing their platforms in-house, because you scale and you get to a certain point that, there's just so much to keep up with between Google and between, launching new franchisee sites, launching new landing pages, whatever it may be. It's also a big reason I see franchisors migrating to different suppliers, because again, as you scale, you have different needs. Your franchisees have different needs. So speaking of suppliers, Thomas, I'll go back to you for this. With so many different components of your digital activation strategy, what should brands consider when they're choosing between all-in-one platforms and then solutions, like choosing multiple vendors who specialize?
And in terms of the website itself, like this, because it's broken up into the website system and then the people that drive traffic to the website, those are the two pieces. I don't really know about all-in-one for everything. Like the people offer that sometimes, but I really think when you're looking at a website system, something that's very search friendly is critical. Like, does this website system have indexing tools, and can I map out my strategy for the language? Just like Japanese hot plate. Like if I'm in Seattle and I want to go to a Japanese hot plate restaurant, I've got to be able to search that and get to his location directly. Just like if I want to buy a closet in Nashville, I've got to be able to find my up closet's location and get to it really quickly. I think it's very important to work with a vendor for websites where you own the website. There's a lot of kind of somewhat shady operators in the franchise space who will charge you a bunch of money, and when the relationship ends, you realize you don't actually own your website, which is really a bummer. But also functionality for adding to the website. To Mark's point, that the business evolves over time. Not only does Google evolve, but the way that you communicate your value proposition to your customers evolves throughout the year on an ongoing basis. So having a website system and a vendor that'll work with you to kind of make across the, it's simple. Like you might have a WordPress system and you have it right on one location page, but then you have 157 other pages you have to update. A CMS vendor that can help you do dynamic changes across the whole match. It becomes, it's just unwieldy and unrealistic. WordPress is great for a small system, but you'll outgrow it pretty quickly. I think when it comes to marketing vendors, that's a much harder thing. Like there's different specialties. I think we're really big fans on making database decisions. And when you hire, we have marketing playbooks for each of our brands, and we break it down into Google Business Directory activities, organic SEO activities, paid search activities, in those three buckets. And we sometimes use different vendors for each. Sometimes we use it for all. I think you guys are really good at the Google Business Directory stuff, which in a lot of ways is just like another website, and they have to work together harmoniously. Like I'll sometimes do a search. Like last night I was helping somebody find a restaurant here in Nashville, and we did a search and tried to kind of match. And then you go to the directory and then you click on the website to see the menu and the hours. Like they're all connected in this customer journey. And so having vendors that can create visibility for you in all those steps and understanding what the steps are. Like if you don't have a strategy, rather than just throwing money at it, figure out like what kind of customer am I trying to target and what's their intent? Like what are they trying to do? Like I go after people in my dryer vent business that have stopped up dryer vents or need their ducts clean. And we're looking for, like, particularly on the duct side, if you just refinished your wood floors, that you should always get your ducts clean. That's like a common practice. So we have to have pages that talk about that in language that leads people back to the way it works. You got to break down all the specific problems for your brand on why, how it works. And then you have to have a website system and a vendor that'll support you on that. And so that can be a little dicey. I think I like having integrated stuff, but also like to measure the results. Like what do you spend and what do you get from it? And, what's the cost per job, and kind of make data help you make better decisions.
Definitely. Yeah, those are some excellent points. And Mark, I'm going to go back to you just in terms of suppliers and franchisors. You speak to franchisors all the time. What are some common things that you're hearing, like some challenges that franchisors are facing when it comes to CMS platforms?
Again, the opportunity that we recognized in this space was a lot of times the site was tied to an agency or an all-in-one platform. So while the agency might be doing really, 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 really well on paid or advanced SEO or even content creation, the the best at the site component because they're doing 6, 8, 10 things. And so, we're coming in saying, hey, look, your site should be agnostic because at least in the marketing technology space, I mean, there's like 9,000 technologies that can be used. I mean, again, I don't know, Thomas, what CRM you guys are using for your leads, but I mean, we have there's Service Titan, there's Vonago, there's
we use
Service Minder, there's so many. But again, if they're not keeping up with, what Thomas's franchisees need, if his website is through somebody that, is like, nope, we only use this vendor, or we are only that vendor. I mean, now he's got to figure out not just moving his website, but the whole digital marketing ecosystem that he's built. And so that's where we're like, okay, that's the biggest thing. Franchisors, franchisees, keep your site, plug and play the best of the best. And again, you're testing. Like if the agency is really good at paid, cool, keep them, But what we saw obviously through the pandemic is a lot of the first things that get shut off are the things that are underperforming. And the one thing that didn't, at least for us, was sites. And we're like, oh, wow, there's a lot more value in sites than we thought. In 16 years, we just thought it was another piece of marketing technology. And again, the running joke here on the human side was, I used to tell my co-founder, who we've worked together for 17 years, it's like, damn it, Daniel, I do not want to be known for websites. Like there's bigger fish out there. Like we can never build anything big. And then it's like, oh my God, we saw the value. It had to be priced accordingly and everything. And that's getting a little bit off topic, but nonetheless, keeping the site agnostic to pick the best of the best and not be tied to one who might be underperforming, but also does your website.
Yeah, that's great. And Thomas, like you mentioned that Google Business Profiles are also an extension of franchisee sites of your core presence. So how would you recommend franchisors and franchisees can make the most of their Google Business Profiles?
Well, I think the Google Business Profile has gone through a ton of evolutions here recently. And what I tell people about your digital footprint is, we generally tell our franchisees you really have 3 home bases. You have a Facebook profile, a business page, you have the Google Business Directory page, and then your local website. And all 3 of those should be integrated and tied into your CRM. We use WorkEase as the system we use, which is a great system. What I tell people is, like, think about the website and the scope of content on your local website as a replacement for a 15-minute conversation with a franchisee. Like if they get to the website, they should get to learn enough of the value proposition and the scope of services and the price range and who you are, like literally who you are. Like, do you even have pictures of your franchisees, the actual franchisees on the website? Is it really a locally owned, nationally franchised business, or is it just a franchise location? Like the more human you can make it, the better. But the Google Business Directory has gone through some really dramatic changes here recently. And some of the things like the product pages that like we can now add like shopping style product pages and the FAQ pages and post and all kind of interesting kind of stuff that you can put. If you're a restaurant, like it opens up the doors for a lot of really creative marketing that's really easy, but super high performance and very low cost, for franchisees. And because it all connects to the website through the links, there's only so much information you can show on a GMB. So the website is the important next step, because that's really where that automatic kind of 15-minute relationship gets made. It's like the home base. Without that, it's hard to convert.
Definitely. And another big part of the Google Business Profiles are the reviews. So Troy, I'm going to go to you for this one. How can franchisors address negative reviews of a specific franchise location?
Yeah, I think this is all in how you get started with that topic. It's all in the build up phase. So it's really about picking the right solutions partner and tool, but also having that conversation with the franchisees from day one. And if you're going to implement it after you already have franchisees, you have to get the right mindset in place of, this is not about policing. This is not about slapping hands. This is about helping each other. We want you to be informed. And so we want this tool or this process to help inform you and your team. We want you to pass this through to your team in a very positive way. Like, hey, it's better to know than not know, so that when we know, we can address it, and we're going to address it head on. And what negative or positive, right? Or neutral, just feedback or input or insights that customers, especially ones that really care, are going to tell you. Hey, the outside sign light, that's a very common one in restaurants. Somebody forgot to turn the sign light on, or the automation before it didn't work or whatever. But you want to know. So we make it very clear that the idea is we're not watching everything every day, every single review or every single comment, but we are looking for trends. We want to make sure that our menu is meeting the need of the customer, our service style, our timing. Did we do something that caused our overall, order to dish at table time to go up, right? Did we change a process, and is that affecting our franchisees? So we look at it from how are we making decisions and what decisions should we make to improve our franchisees' potential and performance and offering, but also at their level, what are they doing that's being reviewed or commented or messaged on that we should be aware of? And it's just something you don't know without some sort of oversight or visibility. We use some global tools that allow us to see every mention on every social media, every comment, every hashtag, every review on any site. And so again, we get high level and look at the analytics a little bit bigger, but we want the store manager to get that text or that chat bot or that email that says, hey, here's what was said today. And it can be a roll up, it can be an individual review. And we actually use a couple different mechanisms to do that, to make sure our franchisees are informed and have information to improve their performance and improve their staff's performance and reward their team and reward themselves for improving something or moving the needle on something we're working on. So it's incredibly important. It's more about how you implement and how you manage, and that it's not seen as sort of big brother, looking down on and, picking up the phone every time a 3-star review comes in. It's something that if it's a food safety issue or an ADA issue or something happened in a store or while one of your service members was on site talking Thomas's language, you want to know that and you want to know their side of that story. So it's incredibly important to have those tools and work with your franchisees on using them together.
If I could add one thing to that, I think customer reviews are taken for granted a lot of times. And on the service side of the industry, I think leveraging sales automation and a CRM to automate the review process is so important, because at the end of every ticket, we have a sales automation that goes out with a customized little message, and it's personified to the person. It'll say, hey, I'll have a picture of the owner with the person's name behind them on a computer screen. It'll say, thanks for the job. Would you take a minute and write a review? And for every review we get, we donate, $5 to Meals of Hope or a charity for food. And we get reviews on like 60% of our jobs because of that. Before, we got like one review every other week, and now I get 5 or 10 a week. It's the steady stream of positive reviews is overwhelming. So when you do get there's always a jerk. Some people make mistakes. There's always somebody. A restaurant business is more likely to get reviews from actual customer experiences versus you really need the reviews from the people that had a great experience. They just don't think about it. And so automating the review process so that the link goes out right after the service, and then having some kind of incentive that, hey, we're going to give to charity if you take a minute to do this. I found really amazing. And review velocity, just this idea that you have reviews all the time. Embedding the reviews on your website, we call it the wall of love, like using a widget of some kind to kind of populate reviews on the website is like a force multiplier. Like, it's crazy how much of a perception you can change by just leveraging your positive reviews. And people just leave it dormant. They just don't do it. And it's so easy to do.
And technologically, by the way, it's actually ranked in Google SEO, right? So activity is actually a rank index that matters. And by the way, even more importantly, so is the comment or response by the brand or the brand manager. So if you get a bunch of reviews, that's great. If you reply to all of them, talk about a force multiplier, it also doubles that activity for the review. So I think you're right, Thomas. It's completely understood and certainly not well engaged with as a important methodology of discovery, digital discovery, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's a great addition. And, going back to Troy, what you were originally saying too, what I've seen in franchising too is, when in franchising specifically, you have so many of these franchisees who are representing your brand. And that's something that I used to talk to them about as well, because so many of them were underutilizing their Google business profiles. They'd have them all set up and they'd be like, okay, I'm on Google. That's all I need. In the meantime, like you said, they weren't responding to reviews. They weren't even, making the correct updates. And from an accountability standpoint, yes, it's on them to do that, but it's also on the franchisor to set those expectations. And like Troy, you said, like managing them, but not in like a micromanaging way, just holding them accountable for their profiles.
Yeah, the one other really quick thing, because we're talking about review velocity and activity being so important for the GMBs. Teaching franchisees in our business to geotag pictures, to take like a picture and drop the pin on the map. There's websites that do this for free. We upload the picture, but uploading a geographically correct picture to your market, because you might be using some standard stock pictures from the restaurant brand that were taken in Seattle and you live in Albuquerque. They're obviously not in the right market, but you can take the same picture and geotag it for free and then upload it. It really does increase the span. Those little things really matter.
Yes, and on social too. Getting a little off topic here, but on social too. And I used to work with franchisees. It's such a big difference when you tag your location on social media, and it just increases the discoverability, especially on platforms like Instagram, where people are searching for businesses like yours in their area. And going off of that, Thomas, I'll go back to you for this one. Let's talk about paid advertising for a minute.
Yeah.
So when it comes to paid ads, what strategies can franchisors implement to ensure they're getting the most bang for their buck and not just kind of throwing money with not so many results?
I mean, paid ads, you really have to study the language that your customers use. Like what questions are they asking and how are they searching for me, and what are the short and long tail terms? You really have to become a student of your customer journey. And any good franchisor should take the time to map that out for your franchisees. If you don't, please get some help on that. That's such an easy thing to do, and it makes such a huge difference, because not all search terms are equal. Some terms convert at a high rate, some don't. And so if I have somebody who says, for instance, like, I need somebody to clean my ducts after I refinish my wood floors, like that's my core customer. Like I'm all over that customer. So doing search terms around that, like in the dryer vent cleaning business, we sometimes will do paid search ads around just an ad specifically around dryer vent reroute and repair quotes, like a really long tail, very low search volume, but we convert every single one of those we get, and they're a much higher ticket. So taking the time to learn which words work, and people will sometimes think broad, like dryer vent cleaning or custom closets. That's not really where the juice is a lot. And paid ads is very different from organic and GMB work. When you launch a new website, you have to really begin working on the area sites and all the SEO stuff. And that's not going to throw off leads on day one. It takes almost a year sometimes for it to really build up momentum, for you to have a big enough footprint. Paid search is the switch you can turn on. So I always tell people do both, do organic stuff and at least some basic paid search. We make sure that our paid search has a little bit of sponsored links on the maps listing, so that some portion of our AdWords spends, as if we're in some place where our GMB is new and it's not ranked in a competitive space, you can bump up to the top. That's a huge lead generator for us. I think it's really important to do Google Messenger on mobile. If you're have that activated for your franchisees, we get a much higher conversion rate with chat-based leads than other ones. And I think if you're a TikTok user or you do short form videos, doing YouTube short ads and AdWords is a really cool thing to do that's cheap and converts at a really high rate. But particularly for the Japanese hot plate, that would just be cool looking to see. But you could turn that into
We're hiring an in-house team this week. It's coming.
That's really good stuff. It's just cool to look at, like it's a neat physical thing to look at. But I think really thinking about the language, the other type of ad I really like, I call a conquesting ad, which is, limited budget, advertise on your main competitors, like literally advertise as an alternative ad, say, don't overpay for your closets. I advertise on California Closets, for instance, because that's my main competitor in a lot of markets, and I'm 30% less for the same exact closet. So why not? I get leads that way. So just really using data to help you refine down and sharing the results across all the maps. And we work with vendors that kind of can do that with us. I think paid search can be one of the highest producers of volume and the highest quality leads at the highest close rates. It can be really expensive if your strategy's off. Like you can spend, thousands of dollars and not get much, versus somebody that spends a small amount and gets a ton. It's just all in kind of what it's focused on. So that's a little bit of trial and error. We really believe in matching our organic strategy with our paid strategy. So once we use paid search to figure out what the terminology is, Then we come back at the local sites and build out content plans for a bigger footprint that matches. Because if you have paid search and an organic ranking and a GMB, you're going to get a 40% typically increase in lead generation from those, and they all play together. So it's a little geeky on the marketing side, but I think you have to conquer those today to be solid at it.
Honestly, you're spot on.
Yeah.
There's nothing, I don't even know what I'm supposed to say. Like, you're doing it for us. I mean, so then are
Well,
you?
but I mean, I
but
think
this
those are
selfishly-
concepts that if you're a franchisor, you have to master those or your marketing department does. Like somebody on your team has to have a handle. And if you just heard what I said and you really don't understand it, reach out to us, reach out to me or Mark or somebody
Right.
like I'll talk to you.
So Thomas, just real quick, selfishly, so are you using an agency to execute, or are you running the marketing for franchisees?
Yeah, I use vendors for the franchisee stuff, so I don't do it in-house, although I do the strategy in-house. So like I like to have 2 or 3 vendors. I really don't like service businesses. We spend a lot on digital marketing. And sometimes people don't like a particular vendor for one reason or another. So I always have 2 or 3 that I've vetted
For paid.
for paid
Yeah.
search. Yeah, I have a vendor for GMB stuff that I use. I have a vendor for paid, and then sometimes the same vendor will do SEO, or they'll use a different vendor for SEO. I try to get people to think about those buckets as separate and distinct, because the strategies are really different.
But would you have like a paid vendor? I don't know how to say this, like almost pitch you that they've done their homework on that particular home service, right? Versus, we can manage your spend for $2,000 per franchisee. And then of course it's like, they're going after, like you said, dryer vent. And it's like,
I'll ask them. I was like,
blow
do the
budget
keyword
in, like,
research
2
and come back
seconds.
to me with like what your targeting would be. And talk to me about demographics, talk to me about age range, talk to me about geography, talk to me about the long and short tail terms. And then the important thing, and we use a tool called SEM Rush, which I think is a really useful kind of consumer tool. What are the questions that people are asking on those? Like, come back with me with the top 10 questions you think my target customer is going to ask of us, and come up with a strategy that aligns with that. Because that's the secret sauce, is understanding the actual questions, not the keywords. Like what are the questions that somebody who's going to buy a closet or get their dryer vent clean is going to ask? Like, that's the secret sauce that drives paid search.
Is there like a threshold that like a paid search agency, let's say, does not meet, where you're like, you gotta
go? Sometimes paid search agencies will say, our minimum spend is $4,000 a month
per franchisee.
Yeah, and I think that's ridiculous personally, because we have a couple that do 1,000 or 1,250 a month, and we get good results, but it's only because it's super focused and we don't have any fluff in it. I think if you're really narrow in terms of, I'm spending money on stuff I know converts, and I'm not spending money on anything that's just junk. If you want to build brand, there's social media and Facebook ads and other types of marketing that are much more cost effective. Paid search should be for that person that wants a Japanese hot plate meal that's in Seattle, and you have one in Seattle. Like, you got to be super narrow in who you're using, because it is a high intent customer. It's somebody who's literally looking to buy something, and you got to just think about it that way.
Have you found any success with like any like the AI or like automated paid platforms, right? Where it's like, just tell us your location and your service, and we will build the list. We will allocate the funds, versus like an actual agency.
I don't
like an actual platform that does that. Like, have you seen that work? Or
I haven't seen it work, and I'm not a fan of the automated bidding platforms either that people use.
Yeah,
I like manually bid stuff. I just think you can, because like on a mobile phone, if you're not in the first or second spot, you're really not on the radar. And so you have to be able to get up to high level visibility. And sometimes it's better to be visible in the number 1 spot on a lot fewer terms, but have that visibility, than it is to have a broader swath of stuff. So I think look for somebody who understands the economics of your franchisees too. If we have a dryer vent business, might do $15,000 to $30,000 a month per truck. They're not going to have $6,000 to spend on paid search. It's just not realistically possible in that market. They have 1,000 or 1,500 all day long. So I got to have somebody that can handle that and deliver on that. It just depends. So it's, like there's some really good ones in franchising that do this kind of work. Just finding one that can accommodate you and take the time to understand your brand.
Yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Speaking of strategies, if we could just transition real quick back to social. Troy, I know you mentioned that your team has been working on revamping your social efforts. So if you could maybe talk a little bit about that and talk about some strategies that you've seen that have really helped franchise brands.
Yeah, I mean, back to hyperlocal, we've decided to bring social in-house with either very near attached vendors that are really focused on our brand, and in concert with in-house creative and storytelling strategy and actual production as well, editing and things like that in-house. So, for us, and I've just, played and tried this many different ways. The answer is, if you're not in control, the results aren't there, right? I mean, it's very, very difficult to have this high level generic sort of presence. You have to be very, very nimble and very responsive to, if you're chasing trends and your trend brand, great. But the algorithm and the attention of the consumer and all that is just constantly evolving, and different consumers in different markets, and all require sort of a different tactic. And so you just got to be on it all the time. Follow Thomas Scott on TikTok and you'll be mostly on it as you can be, because his content's amazing. But whether you outsource it or bring it in-house, this is not a set it and forget it, as it's been said before. This is a full-time gig, and the tech side of this and the deep understanding of how these tools work and how the back end structure works is really a very professional situation. That's most business owners and operators and people who, they just don't understand the craft of social media is a really technical and very specialized field that requires constant knowledge and education, upskilling and familiarity. So for me, I like the mixed in-house, out-house, where there are vendors that for very affordable prices can do very specific things for you that are very specialized. Like our Google search is outsourced, right? They watch it every day. They respond to the analytics, they see what's working, and they make those adjustments. And whatever those minor adjustments can be very, very small, but they can have a very big impact. It has resulted on our franchise business at about 87% of all leads come through Google search. And so we know they're seeing our brand other places. We know they're, being exposed to our social media, being exposed to our LinkedIn, being exposed to our B2B content and our B2C content. And then they're curious, but they're always going to Google. And if you're not discoverable, by the way, if you see Pepper Lunch one time in passing going down the road, or you see a TikTok really quick, in 8 hours, you're not going to remember the name. It's like, what was that pepper something or Japanese thing, or, Thomas, hot plate thing, sizzling what, And so we're humans. We don't remember the exact term of things that aren't familiar to us or new to us. So you're going to go searching around for it, and we have to know what you're looking for, and we have to be discoverable on both sides, B2B and B2C. So you kind of have to have different strategies. I think you have to have a mixed model of in-house team and outsource vendors that support very specialized pieces of each of this. But to Thomas's point, know where the attention is. Did you know that Google, TikTok, and YouTube are the 3 largest search engines in the world, right? I don't care about Bing personally today as much as I care about those 3. We've got to get our YouTube Shorts up and running, because that is one of the most discoverable utilities today. Why? Because YouTube has chosen to compete with TikTok, and so they're pushing YouTube Shorts. And so when you search YouTube Shorts, videos are popping up on your search very high, at high value. So if you have that 12-second video that gets somebody's attention because sizzling beautiful food, or or food they've never seen, or an experience they've never experienced, now you get their attention. Now they learn more about your brand or your service or whatever that is. So I think it's a very critical component, and I think it trumps most of the other efforts you might be thinking about making, or where most people are thinking about spending their ad dollars or their development fund dollars. Digital has to be first in that conversation.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, we have seen in the last year a real split between what we call traditional digital marketing, the Google Universe suite of things, and what I call social commerce, which is a little more of an involved kind of ad platform that leaches into the social media platform. So we, like in the service industry, it went from being a really small percentage to the majority of our new customers are coming through conversational ads, Facebook or Instagram or Reel ads or TikTok ads that have a messenger opt-in where somebody's chatting with a customer and there's no website or phone. those book at a really high rate. But the local website still plays a pivotal role because it's in the profile when they actually go. If I see duct cleaning or dry vent cleaning on Facebook, I might think it's a scam. People assume everything on Facebook or TikTok's a scam. So the actual local website, if it's discoverable, is the social proof that you're real and human. And so I think having those two are there. I think that, our ad budget's roughly 50-50 for social commerce ads and traditional digital marketing ads now. And that's a big shift. The social commerce ads produce a higher volume of business than the digital ads. We've seen that, the cost per lead just has gone up and up and up. And, I would say, we actually do care about Microsoft, Bing, and the DuckDuckGo kind of end of the paid search space. I don't know if you're, if you, depending on what you're selling, like we're in the closet space in particular, the demographics of a DuckDuckGo user, which is heavily advertised now, tend to be more affluent business owners. If you're doing recruitment marketing, that's a really important thing to pay attention to. But it's been a long time since we had alternate search engines to really talk about, but there have been some shifts. Bing now has the AI involved. And so there's some reasons to advertise on those sites that are new that didn't exist a year ago. But the social commerce is where a lot of the action's at. I think you got to think about those differently because they're discoverable in different ways. But boy, the website still plays the pivotal role in all. It's still the home base. It's still where somebody gets to know you.
Definitely. And before we get to the last question here, we're gonna go to the Q&A after that. So if all of you tuning in, there should be a Q&A feature on the bottom of your screen. If you want to go ahead, you can start sending in any questions you have for our panelists. But for our last question, and this goes for each of you, from a marketing perspective, what can franchisors do to set franchisees up for success in their local markets? And I know there's some standard things that most franchisors do, but maybe something a little bit more unique or something that you think more franchisors should consider doing. Whoever wants to.
Seeing that I'm not a franchisor, let me test it with Thomas and Troy. Again, having been in business 16 years, and being through the life cycle of let's build something and, and then like, we'll flip it, we'll move on to the next one versus now like just truly loving what we do. And again, it's probably cliche, actually loving who we're working with, aka our customer. It's like, again, like when I hear Thomas say, hey, again, for the record, I did not know, like when you redo your floors that you should get your air ducts cleaned, for the record, like did not know that. Right. But then also like, okay, like I hear that and I get goosebumps. I'm a pretty hairy guy where like, I'm like, oh my God, like there obviously does need to be a page, on the site. Again, that's probably generic enough across the US or across all franchisees that us as like a caring vendor, and I hopefully we instill this, hopefully our CS teams hear this, is like, well, we're actually like listening. And it's like, holy shit, like that's an opportunity to put our customer ahead. Here, we did some research on what you said. And again, it could be off the cuff, but like, again, it's like a truly listening, caring vendor to be like, all right, hey, we spun up these pages. We can localize it in this way. It's unique to Arizona because of dust storms versus like a Seattle. And it's like, you're in it with them. It's not just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to charge them now for this page that I'm going to roll out. Like, it's like, and it's like a caring business. Again, again, we came from the software world of like, just as many customers as you can, like whatever, some will churn. No, I don't want anyone to churn. It's like leaning in and listening, like, again, we bid on another home services brand this week, or I guess last Friday or last Monday. And it was like, there's a certain bug in the East Coast that like ruins like a certain type of tree. I'm obviously drawing a blank on it now, but when I heard it, I was like, okay, how do we get that message to do something proactive to help our customer win? And so again, when I look at it for a franchisor, you're looking at it like you want to pick a vendor that actually cares at that level. And again, not just lip service, but that can actually like take action on it. And so again, I'm obviously selfishly a bit more prone to be like, that's why I like the idea of picking the best of the best, because like they actually care. Like they want that lead to be answered via text, like they want to track it versus like, some vendors where it's like, let me just take the money and, eventually you'll churn out in a year, but we've already filled it in with like 3-4 customers. And so
Well,
Again,
it's one of the
listening.
business
Like
axiom
common
is
sense human listening.
yeah, the business axiom is the market forgets generalists and celebrates specialists. And the more specific you can be with your advertising and the content on your website, like you got to boil it down to the most specific problem that you can and have as many of those specific problems. We would, in our language, we would build a cornerstone page that we dynamically populate everywhere for, about that topic with 8 or 1,200 words with pictures and a video, and you just have a bunch of those over time, and that's how you dominate the more specific your ad on Facebook is, the better the conversion rate. Generic just doesn't work today. It's too broad. People, have very specific problems. And you asked about franchise support and what, as a franchisor, I think that's really important. I think people buy franchises for the implication that there is marketing assistance and there's a marketing strategy and a marketing system. And it's shocking how many franchisors don't have a clue about how to do this. And so I think it starts with having a marketing playbook. What are all the channels in your playbook? Like, and mapping out the assertive in-market print and the paid search and the GMB and the local website and the social commerce and the word of mouth referrals and the the networking and the review systems and whatever it is for your business, having the 8 or 10 channels in your playbook and training on each of those and having vendors for each of those. And then having some kind of monthly marketing kind of plan where you can kind of enter in the cost, and you have, if I spend $2,000 on space perks, that's going to give me $15,000 a closet business or $20,000 a closet business. So you have to kind of build a plan for that and be able to coach against the KPI. So I think that's one of the things that people miss is they'll have like, yeah, you should do some paid search and get a local website and maybe put some Facebook ads up, but it has to be tied to a specific outcome you can measure, and you have to coach and train on it constantly. It's like it's an ongoing thing. And the better you are at that, the happier people are to pay their royalties. Because if you can say, look, our systems generated $50,000 worth of business for you last month, isn't that amazing? Look at how much came from the vendors we hooked you up with, and then everybody's happy. Like when you don't do that, people get really grouchy.
Well, it helps that you understand the whole marketing ecosystem.
But I think you can't be a franchisor and not understand the marketing. You can just literally, you can't play this game if you don't understand it. Like, this is not, you're screwing with people's money and their livelihood, and you got to take that really seriously. And if you don't know it, for God's sakes, get help, get a fractional person, get a vendor, there's plenty of people out there that will work with you on that.
Well, to say it very plainly, it is one of the most contentious pieces of the relationship between franchisor and franchisee that there is. It is the one thing, in the restaurant, we take 2% of gross sales, right? And some brands take up to 5, which I think is highway robbery, but 3.5 is not unusual. And so you're going to give me, up to 2-3% of your gross sales, and I'm supposed to turn that into brand building. That there's an obligation of service there, right? You're paying me to provide services and resources. And so it just like in the restaurant space, if I didn't understand supply chain, you shouldn't buy a franchise from me, right? If I don't understand training and upskilling team and life cycle, of the employee journey to help get you more people so you can open more stores, I'm not doing my job. So, we take that very, very seriously, and I have for my entire career. So on our side, we actually set up an entire separate marketing corporation. So it is Pepper Lunch Marketing America, right? And so we actually segregate not only the dollars, but the activity, and we have our own leadership, and we're building our own team there just to be able to show how serious we are of how important this is to our franchisees and to our brand. The more they make, the more we make. So we want to drive their success. And so we need people that specialize in systems that specialize in that. And we want to have that transparency and analytic capability, right? We want to be able to show that your dollars came in. This is what we did with them. This is how the analytics down to your street and your store level, how we affected your business, right? So I think it's incredibly important to not only take it seriously, but know what you don't know, and then go get the help, as Thomas said, and be willing to try, right? Be willing to test, be willing to fire, be willing to double spend. A lot of times we have transition where we'll spend on 2 or 3 vendors to see what we get, right? To see what resonates, what works, how are they to work with? So sometimes you have to make those investments up front to sort of hone in on who you are, what you do, what you offer, and then, who the best players are, whether they're in-house, outsourced, or how that combination works together. It's incredibly important to take seriously, but our job is to provide resources, provide tips, tricks, tactics, and best practices. And so to Thomas's point, we have an onboarding social media checklist, we have manuals, we have the playbook, we actually have our brand guidelines, both in beautiful graphic deck format, and we have a white paper version, very easy reference, right? All the topics. Here's what you're going to come back to 6 months from now and go, what are we supposed to do or not do? Or what's the right terms or not the right terms to use? Great. We have a white sheet. We can just go to that. Do's and don'ts language, do's and don'ts visuals, right? And so you've got to make it very, very easy and very, and you've got to write it in a way for everybody, right? You got to have different materials for different people that use them differently. But your job is to put it on the table and then listen, watch the feedback, adjust and update. Everything for us is digital, all lives in a portal platform. We can change the version in 5 minutes. If something's not working, something's changing, there's a new platform, the algorithms change. I heard something on TikTok that Thomas said, boom, I'm going in the portal and eating the manual, right? Or the checklist just got added because I didn't think of that. So I already learned several things here today. So I'm looking forward to actually
Well,
I've actually already slacked it to my team. I've already slacked it while Thomas was talking.
That's awesome. You said something really important, that I have a budget set aside for experimental marketing at all times. Like I think you have to do small experiments constantly, because you're either in franchising, you're on a rocket going to the moon, or you're on the front of the Titanic about to go under the waves. There's no middle ground in franchising. It's a people business. And I really try very hard to engage franchisees in the experiments. Like, I get volunteers and form little ad hoc groups to test something out. And I don't ever push something out unless franchisees have tested it as part of the self-funded group that we do. And so that it's proven. Because the worst thing is having been a franchisee in other people's system, when they force something down your throat that's not tested properly, it just blows up on you. It does so much damage to the relationship. So have a budget for that. Like, make sure, make it a line item in your budget where you're just going to spend money trying vendors, testing ideas. If a franchisee has an idea, give them the stage and let them try it and see. It might work, and that's how you innovate. And what the best thing about that strategy is, when you get a franchisee who's proven something out, they become the brand champion for it, and they actually get everybody else to buy in. So it's not a top-down strategy. I thought that was really smart, Troy.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Great. We're gonna go over, we have a few questions actually in the Q&A, so let's see if we can address some of them. First one is from Paul, who asks, besides alternative ads on competitor searches like don't overpay for cabinets, are there any other little known brilliant hacks to switch customers to consider you instead?
I think we're in this influencer age, and one of the things organically I think really works is not really carrying a fake profile, but like back to the mom blog kind of strategy. On the service side, we sometimes will engage people to write like a first person account of why they picked us, and like a narrative of the whole process from start to finish with pictures and videos. And really, like, what's it like to work with Up Closets in Nashville? Like, that kind of an article or cornerstone piece is so specific. And when you have cornerstone pages, which are not the normal pages, they're stuff that's in the bottom, you can do ads around your cornerstones and you get a much higher level of response rates because it's so specific. You could have one around, like renovation or getting tile or your floors redone. And the reason you have to clean your ducts is all that dust gets in your AC vents and you're breathing it. And it's really important to clean it out. So you can have an article about why I did this and why I didn't know you needed to do this and why I would always do this again and I budget for it, that kind of a thing. I think, using the local website to drive the ad platform, and not just, you don't want every visitor to go to the homepage. That's not really the point of the website. So that's my answer for that. And also, like, the local maps listings on AdWords, if you're not doing that, making sure you opt into that. That's like a really important point.
Definitely. Anyone have anything they wanted to add to that?
You just have to be different. And I think one of the easiest things to do to be different is personalize, right? Show your team, show your customer, ask your customer to speak on video, ask your employees questions, show behind the curtain, especially in restaurants, right? Sometimes it's a trust thing that you will need to build trust because they can't see the food and where it's being made and how it's being made. Talk about why stuff is your stuff? Why do you use the materials you use when you build closets? Why do you use different ingredients in your restaurant? Whatever that is, peel the curtain back. That personalization and willingness to be open and honest and vulnerable and build trust and build community. Nobody else does that, especially in restaurants, but in many most businesses. So do what other people aren't willing to do, and you'll see tremendous upside to trust and trial and even winning people back, right? That may have tried you and sort of didn't have a relationship. Maybe now they're building relationship with you through that channel. So I think hyper personalization and being showing the human side of your business is incredibly important.
Yes, totally agree. We'll try to get through the rest of the questions here. The question from Tony. Oh, my new friend in franchising. I just met Tony last week. How much responsibility does the franchisee need to take to grow their local business, and what do you recommend they do?
Hey Tony, good to see you. She's everywhere. She's
Yeah.
really good. You got to understand, when you're a franchisee, it's your business. It's not my business as the franchisor, it's your business, and I get paid over a small royalty for that. I think getting people to fund and manage their own marketing can be a real chore. That's one of the hardest things to do as a franchisor. And so we start out with really detailed marketing plans in our systems, and we say, look, in a service business, the industry standard is, in the first year, your marketing spend would be 18 or 20% of whatever you're trying to shoot for as your revenue goal. And you won't hit it in the first month, but you're going to have to spend more. And so we try to break down the data with spreadsheets so that you can see, if I spend $2,000 on AdWords, I'll get this much business. And if I spend $1,000, I might get this much. So if they have a goal, say, to get to $50,000, and that needs $6,000 of marketing spend, and they're only going to spend $1,500, they're not ever going to hit that number. So it's really a conversation with the owner about, what are you trying to do with this business? Like, what's your actual goal on the revenue side, and how do you do it? And then you have to build some accountability and ownership of the franchisee and their ability to manage and do that. And we have all the stuff and structure and systems and coaching for it. But at the end of the day, Tony's got to run her business by herself, with the resources and vendors, and make those budgeting decisions. And the worst thing you can do in any business, you can't cut marketing in a business and get to higher profitability. It just doesn't work. There's no universe where cutting marketing actually produces a better result.
Well, and you have to provide the tools. You have to make the tools accessible, and you have to explain how the tools are used, and they have to be affordable and meaningful. And what I mean by that is, whether it's a vendor, an agency, or a technology, or some hybrid of that you're providing them something you've tried in your corporate store or business, or you've tested in your environment, and then you're bringing that to them and saying, hey, this will take your $1,500 and make it $3,000 worth of advertising because of its efficiency, because the vendor or the tool amplifies or makes more efficient the process. So it is our job to do those tests. It is our job to understand what technologies and systems and processes are being made available to the industry, and utilize them and understand them, so that we can then provide them. It's optional. In the restaurant industry, it's been common to require a 1 or 1.5% up to 2% gross spend on the local level. So you give me 2%, and then I force you to spend 2%. That's the most ridiculous thing ever. I have no time or interest in policing what you do and don't spend money on, and how effective it is or isn't. It is your business, and we're going to give you tools and resources, knowledge and experience. We're going to give you all the things we can, and we're going to spend your money that you provide us in the marketing fund as effectively as we can to drive your business. But ultimately, you have to take, to Thomas's point of view, responsibility, and maybe take what your franchisor is doing for you and amplify it with your lesser budget, right? Maybe pouring on top is a more effective strategy, right? And so work with your franchisor, understand what they are and are not doing, and fill in those gaps, or pour the fuel on top of the fire they've already started for you.
Right.
Yeah, great. I think we have time for one more. We'll go over to Paul Segreto. Question for Thomas. I know you're quite proficient in public relations. Please comment on how PR can mix in with the various aspects of local marketing that you've already mentioned.
Well, I think PR has gone through a shift. I mean, there really aren't journalists anymore like there used to be. And so one of the things that I tell people today is the short form video, the user generated content is really the new form of PR. Like that's how you get in front of people in your market is by producing short form videos on all the various platforms, Instagram, Facebook Reels, TikTok, even LinkedIn, all of those YouTube shorts, all those things really matter. Like that's how people are getting to where they become to know you and understand you and have an intimate relationship with you, even though they've never stepped foot on your store premise. And so I think that is a more effective use of time and resources than traditional PR was, because there just really aren't journalists anymore. Like who reads the newspaper and like that. But I look at TikTok and I look at Instagram and Facebook, and the average person's spending a couple hours a day doing that. So it really makes a big difference.
Well, the journalists that do exist are starving for content, just so you know. So if you are looking for your local news channel or business magazine, and I do think some of those hyper local family publications, neighborhood publications, they have 30, 60,000 household distribution, but yes, they live on digital, but yes, they put the print out, whatever. They're starving for content and for funds, right? And so things have become more cheap in that realm. And so I agree with Thomas 1000%. It is digital, it is short form, it is all of the things we've talked about today, but there is a place for some of those super hyper local opportunities. And so building a relationship with them by following and interacting with their content, if it's your local news anchor or the business journal writer or whatever that is in your community. And when I say community, I mean hyper local. And then adding them and hashtagging the station or the paper or the magazine, but individually reaching out, following their LinkedIn, interacting with their content, introducing yourself, giving your perspective, sort of that give without expectation model in being a consumer of their product will get you visibility and will get you attention and will likely get you a lot of free PR. So there's a place for PR, but to Thomas's point, PR and marketing and brand are all starting to get pretty blurred here. But when you think about individual tactics, there are some sort of really niche little tips and tricks there that you can deploy that can get you a lot of hyper local attention as well. Free media.
Definitely. Yeah. And if I'd add something to that, it's just looping back to the beginning of the webinar too. When I pulled up that digital activation strategy, it talks about PR, it talks about newsletter marketing, paid ads, everything you're doing for your franchise on a national basis should also be done in your local markets and by your franchisees. And that's where that accountability that we keep bringing up comes in. Especially when it comes to franchisee marketing, you can miss out on so many more opportunities because either you're not hyper localized enough, you're not getting to the right customers, or you're just, as franchisors, it's also your responsibility to be equipping those franchisees with what they need to succeed. And there are a lot of gaps to fill. And as I mentioned, I'll be sending out a recap email to all the registrants. I'll include some takeaways in there, and I'll include that digital activation strategy we were talking about. I know there were a few questions we didn't get to, so I'll also reach out to the panelists and see if we can get those answered for you as well, Paul. But we did go a little bit over, so wanted to thank everyone for joining. Keep an eye on your inboxes for that follow-up email. Thank you to all your panelists for sharing your insights. And yeah, hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.